Welcome everyone. My name is Sean, and today we're going to talk about this situation going on with Steven Crowder and Jared Monroe. You guys might remember him as Not Gay Jared, formerly the number 2 guy on Louder with Crowder, but he left the show in 2018. Well, now he's released a video with a bunch of different accusations against Steven Crowder and Louder with Crowder, the company, and I would like to address that, review the response to that, and talk about what I think is true versus what I think is not true. Now, I do not want to do the TMZ thing where I get into Steven Crowder's divorce. It was brought up in the response from Gerald, the CEO of Louder with Crowder, so unfortunately we are going to touch on certain aspects of this, but in reality, this is not something that I've ever been interested in making content about. That's why when that infamous watch it video came out, even though I thought it was inexcusable and disgusting, I did not cover it. Also, I was very partial to the argument that Crowder was married to this woman for 10 years, and all we saw was 3.5 minutes of what is inexcusable behavior, but it's 3.5 minutes against 10 years. So we're going to have to touch on that in order to address the response from Louder with Crowder, but what I really want to focus on is what Jared alleged, what was actually confirmed by Gerald, the CEO of Louder with Crowder, and what was ignored that I'm actually interested in. But before we get into that, I want to thank everybody who signed up over on actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
And remind you that on Saturday, April 27th, I will be in Austin, Texas for Minds Fest. Link to tickets, top of the description. Use promo code AJW for 20% off.
Enough is enough. This can't go on any longer, and as the famous saying goes, sunlight is the best disinfectant. So, here we go. I'm currently being legally abused and intimidated into silence by a former employer. This has been going on for a while now, and it simply cannot live in darkness for another day. But I am asking for your help to fight back.
So Jared drops a 15-minute and 30-second video a couple of days ago on his Twitter account, and it is loaded up with allegations of what went down between him and Steven Crowder, the fact that he feels like Crowder's team is using lawfare against him, essentially trying to drive up the costs, and this appears to be, according to Jared, in retaliation for him leaving the show and for him just not liking the work environment and the things that he might come out and publicly say. Now, there are 4 key allegations from Jared that I want to address. However, there are other random ones that are ancillary that we can talk about, but these are the 4 main things that concern me and actually caused me to donate to Jared's GoFundMe. On top of that, Ben Shapiro apparently donated $500, so for the meme, I had to donate more than him at $501.
First, some context. In late October of 2023, to my surprise, I was served these papers. A cease and desist from my former employer. It threatened severe legal action in the form of a lawsuit and demanded I cease communications with my friends. The scare tactics of cease and desist are generally to intimidate, isolate, and eventually devastate. Like most cease and desist, it also demanded that I swiftly provide them written certificate of my compliance. I did not. In the same delivery, I was also served these papers. A Rule 202 petition from my former employer. You can look that up on the internet. I know I had to. These documents were filed with the county court of my former place of employment, demanding that I be subject to an oral deposition under oath.
So allegations number 1 and 2 are actually pretty simple, and they are confirmed by both sides, and they ended up leaking the documents to Pearl Davis, I believe, so we can actually see the context of this from the Louder with Crowder team. And that is that after an October article came out, the same article that accused Steven Crowder of exposing himself to his staff and other inappropriate workplace behavior, Jared Monroe was served with 2 documents. The first was a cease and desist document. This has been confirmed by the CEO and by Pearl leaking the documents on the internet in what I can only imagine is her acting as a proxy for Louder with Crowder or for Steven Crowder. And the second was a Rule 202 petition. And Jared describes this Rule 202 petition, which for those of you who don't know, is a petition for him to be deposed in order for them to find grounds to sue him later, as unbelievably broad, requiring over a dozen communications, or the communications between over a dozen people, including unnamed amounts of additional people that he may or may not have said disparaging things about Steven Crowder, Louder with Crowder the company, etc. And we actually have that document. We can look at the 15 people that they want the communications of Gerald from in order to see if they have grounds to sue him. Now, as you can see, they want the communications between Gerald Monroe and Dave Landau, who you guys I'm sure know, Hillary Crowder, Brittany White Turner, Sven Tiedemann, which I believe is Sven Computer, Everett Wade, Courtney Kirchhoff, Edward Parker, Aaron Luna, Jeremy Boring spelled incorrectly, Natalie Corzon, Deborah Corzon, Garrett Morrison, who's Quarterblack Garrett, employees and representatives of the Daily Wire, current and former employees of Louder with Crowder, and number 15, any other individual currently not known whom the respondent has made disparaging comments about Louder with Crowder and or Crowder.
Here's the timeline. On October 27th, 2023, we filed our original Rule 202 petition that Gerald mentioned. Rule 202 petition is basically saying, hey, we're serious. Please knock it off and tell us how far this went. On October 30th, we sent a cease and desist. At that time, October 30th, 2023, all Gerald had to do was respond in writing saying that he was going to knock off what he was doing. He was going to stop violating his agreement that he voluntarily entered into.
So already, right off the bat, we have 2 of the 4 things that I was the most interested from Gerald Monroe's video that happened to be confirmed by the CEO Gerald of Louder with Crowder, and of course the documents that were produced that somehow Pearl Davis managed to get access to before anyone else. So we have that, it's out there. He definitely did get a cease and desist, and he definitely did get a petition to be deposed. And in that petition, they did ask for his communications with a whole host of individuals.
They told me my Twitter account, another potential lifeline to future work, which I had owned and been the sole manager of since 2009, was to be turned over to them on the argument that it was somehow their intellectual property now.
Now, the third issue that was brought up by Gerald Monroe that I was interested in is whether or not Louder with Crowder, the company, upon his departure, ended up seizing his Twitter account, which is an allegation that Gerald makes in his video, and unfortunately is not responded to by Gerald in his response video to Gerald. Now, to be 100% clear, since it appears that Gerald has this Twitter account as his current account, says he's owned it since 2009, the question is, did they ever threaten to take possession of, attempt to take possession of this Twitter account in order to get him to sign the NDA, in order for him to get it back? A question that, again, was not answered. And this really got under my skin because if you guys will remember, one of Steven Crowder's big issues, supposedly with the Daily Wire term sheet that they offered him, was that they would get full ownership of your social media accounts forever, including the ones that you built.
Please, don't sign this. Certainly not without professional legal counsel representation. Do not sign something that includes, let me go through this. Effectively, full ownership of all your social media platforms, channels, in perpetuity, the rights to your content name, image, likeness, even the ones that you've built.
Now, to be clear, even though Steven Crowder was very outraged by this portion of the term sheet, this was not actually true as it comes to that term sheet. In fact, in the Daily Wire contract, they specifically excluded Instagram and Twitter, by the way. You actually only gave up ownership of your accounts during the length of your term. At that point in time, your accounts would be returned to you.
Social media management. This one was something that Steven seemed particularly aggravated by in his video, although I don't understand why. It says DW will have the exclusive right to manage, curate, and monetize his official Facebook, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Snapchat, Rumble, and other social media accounts, excluding his existing personal Twitter and Instagram accounts. So why would we exclude some but not exclude others? Well, we're saying that during the term, we have, of course, he puts his podcast on Apple Podcast. We're the ones monetizing the Apple Podcast. So this is just making clear that, yes, we're selling ads in his podcast. The podcast goes out on Apple Podcast. That revenue comes back to us. We put something up on Facebook, same thing. We bring in ad revenue off of that Facebook piece of content. But we're going to own that during the term. Obviously, at the end of the term, he's going to get his official Facebook account back. He's going to get his official YouTube account back. He's going to get his official Apple Podcast channel back. But during the term, again, all those people behind us, we've got experts in every one of these platforms, how to optimize it, how to make sure that you're getting the most out of it. And we'll manage that and we'll collect the revenue. But not as Twitter and Instagram, because those are very personal channels. You can't manage someone's Twitter.
Now, if the Daily Wire created their own separate accounts for you, like a Daily Wire Louder with Crowder account in this particular instance, they would continue to own that after the fact. So Crowder was very upset about even the hint of that in the Daily Wire term sheet. So I would like to know, and nobody has answered at this point in time, whether or not they did the same thing to Jared. And I think that's absolutely crucial. Now, I've heard people say, you know what, Not Gay Jared is the intellectual property of Louder with Crowder. But the thing is, they can keep the name. They can require Jared to change the name or change the identity of his Twitter profile. My issue is whether or not they took that account from him that he said he was independently managing since the year 2009. And again, just to clarify, for those of you who might be confused, it is likely that their final agreement did make him change the name from Not Gay Jared to Jared Monroe or something else. That's not the question. The question is, did they originally claim ownership of this Twitter account, and did Jared retain ownership through the additional separation agreement that they had him sign? Just reveal the terms around that agreement. You got the documents over at Louder with Crowder, and that will answer the question.
Starting from the day I delivered my notice of resignation, I was put on the phone with company lawyers, and the good cop, bad cop coercion campaign to get my signature on an NDA was well underway. I was told many lies throughout this process. I immediately hired my own legal counsel, and by the grace of God, understanding my predicament, he even agreed to work for half of his normal rate. Even so, the legal fees immediately began to pile up. My former employer and his attorney argued I could not work in media anywhere in the world, and most certainly not in the United States for 2 years. This is not because I had voluntarily signed some sort of non-compete in my original employment agreement. It was because they decided a non-solicitation clause that was in said original agreement would retroactively be interpreted as the broadest and strictest non-compete one could draft. Brings me to what you might be asking next: what was the reason I did sign this? And again, as a man with his first child on the way, the small victory I got from it. The primary reason I signed the NDA was for a small carve-out in the non-compete clause, which allowed me to freely seek employment using some of my skill sets at another specific company. At least I could feed my family. That provision, however, was a lie. And upon starting my new job at the new said company, I was giving another one of these, a cease and desist, and was promptly unlawfully terminated from that position.
Now, the next thing that I wanted an answer to, and I was really hoping that the Louder with Crowder CEO would actually address, is whether or not they blackballed him from his next position, which, by the way, some people on Twitter are saying that he took a job at The Blaze. That was the company at the center of this. If this is true, then I would hope The Blaze or whatever company would release what happened with his employment after that, after Jared specifically negotiated a non-compete exemption for that particular company. Now, for me, these are actually the most important issues of this whole dispute between Jared, Louder with Crowder, and Steven Crowder. Everything about the divorce is ancillary. A lot of it was injected specifically by Gerald, the CEO of Louder with Crowder, but these core things should have been what was addressed. And the way that you can address it is show us the terms of this non-solicitation agreement that you had in the original contract, so we can see whether or not you planned on interpreting that so broad that Jared had to sign something for an exemption so that he could work at another company, which some are speculating is The Blaze. Number two, you should show us whether or not you did send a cease and desist to that next company in order to prevent Jared from working there that resulted in his termination. Now, for me, these are the absolute key issues of this subject matter because it cuts to the heart of whether or not Steven Crowder is the person he portrays himself to be out in the public, in private, or not, because Steven Crowder started this whole Stop Big Con thing based on the idea that the Daily Wire was supposedly giving these contracts that hamstring up-and-coming creators, and if we find out that what he's offering his employees is significantly worse, then that's a big problem. But they didn't address that, they didn't release any of the information, and I think it is fair for this guy who put himself up as a pillar of transparency to actually answer these questions. But unfortunately, he didn't. Unfortunately, he decided to give us, through his CEO, a bunch of ancillary information and accusations and an alleged conspiracy that, when you think about it, never actually address the full 4 points in the issue. They confirmed the first two, that they did send the cease and desist and the Rule 202, but they did not address whether they seized his Twitter account, and they did not address whether they decided to blackball him / gave him an overly restrictive contract.
I just want to say off the top that none of this had to happen. None of it. Didn't have to be this way at all. We didn't choose this. It was chosen for us. In fact, as I'll tell you in just a few minutes, we went to great lengths to give people the ability to do the right thing.
So what was addressed in Gerald's video about this subject matter? And really, if I'm being perfectly honest with you guys, nothing of the substance that I was actually interested in, and a lot of look over there, look at this, let me distract you with this thing, and honestly, I don't feel like this is anywhere near sufficient to answer the questions that cut to the heart of this issue. So let's get into Gerald's video, because I think it's absolutely crucial for you guys to understand exactly what I mean.
So when he released his video yesterday, he asked you to contribute money for a lawsuit that did not exist, unless he's had a lawsuit that he would like to file, which he indicated maybe that was the case. We had not sued Jared. We simply asked Jared to knock it off. Jared, like I said, was raising money for a lawsuit that didn't even exist until this morning. It now exists because Jared has shown that he will continue to violate his NDA.
So when I watched this live, this is one of the things that really bothered me, because I had already seen Jared's video a couple of times, and it's just not true that Jared was raising money for a lawsuit that didn't exist, and now it does exist, buddy, so take that, because Jared never said that he was raising money for the current lawsuit that he was facing with Louder at Crowder. He said he was trying to pay off the debt already accrued by engaging in the cease and desist and the Rule 202 petition, trying to fight it.
I'm asking for donations for two reasons. Number one, obviously to help with the financial burden I've already accrued with this legal matter right here. That's taken care of. That matter is priority number one as I'm going further and further into debt with each passing day. The second reason I'm asking for financial assistance is to proactively address my unconstitutional anti-free speech NDA, which is the basis for all of their claims against me. The simplest resolution here would be for my ex-employer to release me from the NDA. Give me and my fellow ex-employees the same free speech they publicly champion for every other American. But I can almost guarantee you that will not happen. I've already witnessed them spend unfathomable amounts of money in other cases to protect their double life and secrets. No more darkness. That's why, beyond the current burden I face from my ex-employer's legal abuse, I will be using these donations to fight back and file a counter motion, placing my unconstitutional NDA before a judge to have it dissolved in its entirety. I want my First Amendment rights back. I want to stop the cycle of abuse, and I want truth to be known. This takes incredible resources I simply don't have.
And to try to get out of the NDA going forward. You guys can go to the video for yourself. It's 15 minutes, 30 seconds. If you think there is a time code where he said that he was currently being sued by Louder with Crowder, then show me that in the comments and I'll check it out. But it doesn't exist. And I've asked multiple people repeating this line from Gerald to prove it. And the fact is, it's just not there.
It now exists because Jared has shown that he will continue to violate his NDA, to be a part of this scheme to assimilate damaging PR assets to put pressure on Steven in the divorce. I'll show you all the receipts, guys. It's there. He's actively flirted with violations in the past, and now he's involving himself in a private divorce for which he was recruited to leverage the company as part of this long-standing plan.
So this is the core of the argument that Gerald is going to put forward, that Jared was involving himself in a scheme concocted by Steven Crowder's wife in order to get back at him, and specifically in order to get more money from him, which I find interesting because I have this magic power of actually pausing a video when you put some text on the screen and reading stuff, not just what was highlighted for me to read, but in its full context. So we're going to have to get into this, unfortunately. I just want the answer to whether or not you took Jared's Twitter account, whether or not you guys blackballed him from his next job in the 2 years that you were supposed to give him a carve out for an individual company. But this is where we're at this moment in time.
It gives me no pleasure to go down this road. I am being forced to go down this road by their actions to defend this company, to defend the over 30 employees that work for this company. I am not a guy that picks a fight. But if you tell me by your actions, by ignoring easy off-ramps, easy opportunities to do the right thing, that you are not going to stop coming after me and coming after this company and coming after the employees that work here and that put blood, sweat, and tears into this business, if you tell me my choice is to fight you or let them be taken out, I am absolutely going to step up and fight for them.
Now, Gerald also frames this as he's defending his employees from these heinous attacks from Hillary Crowder and from Jared Monroe. But the thing is, Jared is a former employee. He's talking about the contracts that you give to your employees. And there's a reason why the majority of people that you want his communications with also happen to be former employees of Louder with Crowder. And by the way, Dave Landau right at the top.
So you are going to have your own show, which is a plus.
Yes.
But you're not getting paid a single dime to host your own new show on his network or his platform.
Correct.
And in fact, it's costing you money because now you can't be out, doing 2 shows a Friday night in Tacoma or whoever the hell cares, some other city.
Right.
Okay.
So then
I've never heard of that. I'm sorry. I've never heard of someone saying, I'm giving you your own show. You're not getting paid for it. I don't understand that.
Right. It was, well, it's control, and that was kind of what bothered me. It was the I own you aspect. And then the hours.
But that's the thing. If you're doing your own show, they're making money from ad sales or at the very least adding value to the network because now there's more content and you're not seeing a cent of that.
Right. And that was sort of what it was before, where it was we're going to sweeten the pot, and that didn't happen.
Right.
But it did happen in the sense of road dates.
Okay. Right.
So I didn't complain, but then I can't do road dates unless he's on them now.
Right.
Then it's hours Monday through Thursday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Okay.
Friday 9 to 5.
Okay.
Which is so I can never catch a plane out of town on a Friday to even do a Saturday. Then I have to be back on Sunday, making it impossible to see my child or do stand-up.
Yep.
And then the next thing is comedy special releases through Louder with Crowder, because he always felt that he owned my special, even though, because he let me keep the door that night.
Okay.
But I didn't sign anything that said, oh, you're letting me keep the door, so now you own my comedy.
Wait, so his point was this comedy special, which wasn't have anything to do with him. It's your comedy, your stand-up.
Yep.
It's can only be, he's now just, even though for the same money, he's now going to kind of subsume that into his portfolio.
Yes, it's all inclusive.
Wow. Okay.
And that's a non-negotiable term.
Okay. How were you told? They were told you this is non-negotiable?
Yeah. And since I know everything's always being recorded, I was like,
came out and he specifically said, having not signed that NDA, that Steven made it difficult for him to be a stand-up comedian and seemed to go out of his way to sabotage him in his interview with Michael Malice.
Every time. We tried to do this the right way. It's frustrating for me. But you need to know the truth, and that's what's coming out today. All of this information's publicly available. Court documents, not opinion. Not saying I have receipts and not providing them. I'm providing them for you right now.
Now, this is a long intro from Gerald. In fact, we're about 8 minutes into this video, and he hasn't gotten into any of the substance. All he's done is moralize and whatnot, but I do want to address this point right here because Gerald is making the case that all this information is publicly available, and I'm somebody who knows how to find court documents. I've looked for them, and I can tell you for a fact that a lot of this is heavily redacted. Now, when we go to specific documents that I'm going to be referencing, I will tell you which ones are redacted and how we still have information despite it being sealed or redacted. I'm using them interchangeably, but I believe the proper term is sealed because this is not really the case. It's not true. It seems like only people who have access to Crowder, to Gerald, like Pearl Davis, have this information at the ready, and everybody else has to struggle for it, from what I can tell.
Here is Hillary's father in a group text thread to the family, and it's a message that was liked by Hillary. The type of team I want. They understand right-wing media. They are familiar with who Stephen is and that world, and the things that would destabilize him. Remember that word, destabilize. Fully understand and agree that Hillary's goals and expectations for the outcome of this divorce are reasonable and attainable. Not necessarily according to Texas family law precedent, but by employing a media/Brian Friedman and PR strategy that will significantly threaten this public persona and brand. That's from
2022.
Yes. This has been the plan from the beginning, guys.
So as the basis, the foundation of this idea that this is all an elaborate PR campaign from Team Hillary, Gerald opens up with this message from Hillary Crowder's father, and I want to read it in its entirety so you can get it in its full context, but I also want to point out something that is not being highlighted that is going to be a thing that's reoccurring throughout the course of this video because I think it's absolutely crucial. So from the top, it says, the team I want. They understand right-wing media. They are familiar with who Stephen is and that world and things that would destabilize him, or will commit to investing the necessary time, thoughtful consideration, and judgment to become sufficiently familiar with that world in order that they become intellectually and emotionally invested in Hillary's circumstances. They are experts on narcissists and or will read and view selected articles to fully understand narcissism, the impact on the spouse of a narcissist. They have personal interest in me, in my case, and compassion to my situation. They like my creative ideas and family involvement. They think outside the box, are welcome to the ideas of using media/Brian Freeman/PR, etc. They also provide their own strategies and ideas that are outside the box. Now, the fully understand is related to the team that he wants, so it's really they fully understand and agree that Hillary's goals and expectations for the outcome of this divorce are reasonable and attainable, not necessarily according to Texas law. I'm not sure why that's not highlighted, but by employing a media/Brian Friedman and PR strategy that will significantly threaten this public persona and brand. So that's the full message, what Gerald read and what he didn't read. And to be fair, on its surface, this is probably the best piece of thing that they could have ripped out from the thousands of messages and documents that they got from Hillary Crowder in order to throw up on your screen right here. And this is the father strategizing about the divorce. Now, obviously, Hillary Crowder's father is going to be on Hillary Crowder's side. Obviously, when you're going up against a media personality who has his own PR because, you know, he has his own platform, you want to have your own platform. But to be perfectly fair to the Louder with Crowder side, this is a really good selection for them to highlight, but what I find to be incredibly crucial about this is where this can be found, because this document right here that he's referring to, the court documents, is not some neutral document or anything like that. It's actually a lawsuit, and not the lawsuits involving the divorce or anything like that. This is a lawsuit from Louder with Crowder, the company, to Hillary Crowder, her father, her other family members, and her best friend. And you could see it right there, right at the bottom. It says plaintiff's original petition. And in fact, from what I can tell, this lawsuit is about the Hillary Crowder family releasing that watch it video that went viral back in the day to damage Stephen Crowder, because they're alleging that you guys seeing that video out there in the public was damaging to the business and concocted as a scheme in order to hurt the business. And again, they're suing for $1 million. Hillary Crowder, the wife, during the time that she's in a divorce with Stephen Crowder, members of her family, and one of her best friends. Now, why is that important information in my opinion? Well, the allegation, or one of the allegations that was put forward by Jared, is that Crowder's team attempts to bury you in legal costs in order to get you to submit to their will. And right now, a very unusual circumstance has unfolded where Louder with Crowder, the company, is putting together a lawsuit against Hillary and her family and one of her friends and her attorney during the course of time that they're having a divorce.
February 17th of 2023, and just leave that overlay up for me. Hillary and Jared met in Atlanta to discuss their strategy, and they took this picture. How He Changed My Mind. I guess a proposed book that Hillary would like to write to apply more pressure to Stephen.
So after establishing that the father of Hillary Crowder wanted to have a plan for how they were going to engage with Steven Crowder in public to get the terms for their divorce that they wanted, they cut to this image of Jared having dinner with Hillary with a binder that says How He Changed My Mind, which, by the way, would be a very clever title for a book. And this is presented as a scheme in order to go after Steven Crowder. Now, to be clear, the fact that this image was posted on social media, Crowder was meant to see it. Like, let's be perfectly honest about that. Let's be fair about that. But as of right now, I am awaiting the proof of this conspiracy.
February 20th, per Jared's text messages, any scenario where Hillary and I team up is the end of him, meaning Stephen. It is his worst nightmare. Watch the real fear enter his eye when Tim asks the question. All been going on behind the scenes.
So they show this message from Jared where they reference Steven Crowder on Tim Pool, where he is asked about what went down with Not Gay Jared and the fear that was on Steven's face at that particular podcast. Now, I want to highlight that because Steven seems to imply there that the separation between him and Jared was actually amicable because they had a farewell show.
And a lot of people are asking about Not Gay Jared in the comment section. Can you guys clear up what's happening in that situation? Some people are saying that there's an NDA.
Yeah, well, that's the thing I think Candace brought up, right? Again, there's a difference between roping in third parties versus single party consent. I think he tweeted out what happened, where he left, right? Not Gay Jared. He tweeted out that he left. It was his own decision. We did a whole send-off with him in a video montage. You know, this works with like conspiracies, and sometimes
is there an NDA? That's what people are asking.
There are NDAs to everyone, just like here, right? To sign a waiver when I came. If you come into our studio,
I mean, standard business practice.
Yeah, you can't come in and tell people where the studio.
Yeah,
too. I mean,
we have NDAs.
I mean, you guys have had
that.
that.
Of course.
Yeah.
If only for location, it would be worth it.
Yeah, also because he walks around without pants half the time.
Now, we found out, of course, from Jared, who sent this message, that it was anything but amicable, and he is not a fan of Steven Crowder at all whatsoever, so he's proposing this idea that these guys team up, but this does not a conspiracy make. This is Jared proposing this idea of going public, and by the way, getting other employees from Crowder to go public, not necessarily what Gerald is presenting it as. But I do like the fact that he says, look at what is going on in reality in private versus what's going on the surface.
All been going on behind the scenes. Can you believe the actions of people that are out in public saying they're trying to do the right thing and yet behind the scenes scheming?
Well, on the surface, you guys were saying that the separation between Jared was amicable, but in behind the scenes, you guys were doing cease and desists and doing all these other things reportedly that you have not addressed nor have you answered, and using a non-disparage agreement, and by the way, on your very show, saying that you will enforce said non-disparagement agreement in order to make sure Jared can't tell his side of the story. But again, this is their evidence, and I will give them credit. They lead with the strongest piece first, so we gotta be fair, and you guys can make your own judgments as we get into it.
Unfortunately, this isn't a fun day, but it's a day that has to happen where people need to know what's really going on. February 21st, 2023, Jared says this to Hillary. I think there's a scenario where several of us would be willing to attest to all of that. I just don't want him anywhere near those kids. That really, really disturbs me.
So when something is being presented to you, there's two ways to think about it. You can look at what's being presented to you and consume product, and then go about your day. But the other way to look at what's being presented to you is to ask what came before it and what came after it, because these are two messages from Jared, and the first one is clearly reacting to something that Gerald and the Louder with Crowder team have access to, but for some reason, they don't want to show it to us. They just want to show this portion of the message to get their conspiracy narrative out there, but I want to know what Jared is saying that him and a bunch of other employees will attest to. Again, it says, I think there's a scenario where several of us would be willing to attest to all of that. All of what? What is in the previous message? Please show us, Gerald, because it seems like you're just giving us this isolated message. And then there's the follow-up message that a lot of people got drawn into, which is, I just don't want him anywhere near those kids. That really disturbs me. Now, to be 100% clear, that last message with Jared looks absolutely terrible. Now, on Twitter, he said quite clearly that he 100% stands by it. And you have to understand that that is Jared's perspective, not necessarily Hillary Crowder's perspective. And we'll get into that and that distinction a little bit later. But it's understandable if Jared is somebody who's accusing Crowder of all these different abuses, that maybe he doesn't think that this is somebody who should be around children. That would be a one-to-one sensible opinion. In fact, it would be weirder if Jared wanted split custody while at the same time he's accusing Crowder of all these different things. And remember, the cease and desist relates to that article where Crowder's accused of exposing himself, abusing his employees, and all these other ridiculous things that you can go on to read for yourself, because again, we're not trying to get into the nitty-gritties.
This place was and is to this day a workplace rife with sexual misconduct, degeneracy, and aggression. The things I saw, the things done to me, and the things I witnessed my employer do to others were disgusting, shocking, and utterly indefensible.
So this is Jared's message, to be clear about that, not Hillary's message. And I think what's more important is that message right above the one that they're showing us, because I want to know what the employees would be willing to attest to. Now, look, even though I understand why Jared Monroe, who's accusing Steven Crowder of all these things, would feel this way, I understand if it does not sit right with you that he's talking about getting the kids away from Steven Crowder. I, like you out there in the audience, don't like the idea of one parent vindictively trying to seize custody from the other parent, which is why I find it interesting that Gerald never brings up who filed for what type of custody, because it turns out that Hillary Crowder filed for joint custody. So Jared can text her whatever he wants, whatever his opinion is about who should have custody of the kids, but Steven, more importantly, filed for sole custody. And this is reported by my friend Tony, who was in the courtroom at the time at Current Revolt, the Texas paper of record. You can read it for yourself. And one of the things that I will just point out to you guys out there in the audience is that this article was written on June 23rd, 2023. And the subheadline mentions sweet potatoes, i.e. referencing the thing that Gerald called a threat later in this particular video that he revealed, March of 2024. And I think that helps prove the truth of the matter. On top of that, or one of Crowder's attorneys tried to seize his phone, alleging that he was recording, but my boy Tony came prepared, so he whipped out a pen and paper and actually started taking handwritten notes after he was falsely accused of recording the proceedings. But there it is in plain text. While Hillary Crowder is seeking joint custody, Steven Crowder wanted full custody of the children. On top of that, Steven Crowder's legal team wanted to seal the entire courtroom to block off people from the public from seeing what's going on, and they were able to seal certain select documents. Now, as will be made clear throughout the course of this video, whatever custody agreement you have at this point in time to start the proceedings is used as the framework for custody going forward. So the fact that Crowder was pushing for full custody meant that he not just wanted it for the temporary arrangement during the divorce, but going forward. So Crowder, despite what we're hearing about this message from Jared to Hillary, not a message from Hillary to Jared, was the one pursuing full custody. And again, if you think that the in-courtroom reporter is not being honest about this, and by the way, I believe multiple in-courtroom reporters did report this, but I know for sure Tony did, and I trust this man 100% to tell the truth, then ask Steven Crowder, ask Gerald, who seemed to have access to various different divorce documents, to unseal the specific document for this date and time that we're referring to. It's June 23rd, 2023. The ball is in your court to show us what Steven asked for compared to what Hillary asked for. But we all know you're not going to do that. Instead, you're going to deflect to frivolous, ridiculous things like this grand Hillary conspiracy that I guess I must be involved in now because I'm paying attention after you told all these various lies.
Why do this? This was done specifically in order to get more than Hillary would get in court, or that Steven even offered her, because his offers have been more generous than Hillary would ever get in court per Hillary. from a text exchange between Hillary and her mother. Again, all public information, guys. This is a part of court filings, not us pulling anything, not us opining.
Now, again, listen to the language that Gerald uses in order to set this up. He says, this is from the court filings. This is not just us pulling up anything. But the thing is, this is exactly them pulling up things. This is from their court filings. Gerald is the CEO of Louder with Crowder. Louder with Crowder is the one that is suing those people that I named earlier, and this is what they're bringing up, the allegations that they're putting forward, and it doesn't make it neutral court documents just because Gerald wrote it down on paper, or Gerald had an attorney write it down on paper.
The financial offer was serious, and the business evaluator and both of my attorneys agreed the financial offer was good. And while that's better than I would get in court, I want more freedom than that, referring to, as well, custody of the children. Remember that. The financial offer was serious, and the business evaluator and both of my attorneys agreed the financial offer was good. Offer was rejected. Why?
So I love that Gerald says, well, the offer was good. The business evaluator said it. The lawyer said it. It was more than I would get in the regular ordinary court proceedings, but it was rejected. Why? Well, it actually says why in those messages. Again, the power to pause a video and read what is on screen rather than have selected portions read for you absolutely comes in hand right here. Let me read you exactly why, and we'll see if you guys can suss out what Hillary Crowder's issue is. So right here we have on June 2nd, 2022, it says the following: the financial offer was serious and the business valuator and both my attorneys agreed that the financial offer was good. Now, there's a message missing. This is a conversation, but Hillary responds by saying 5 million. Again, I'm curious who sent this other message, because that would give us more context for the conversation, but okay. Anyway, next message from Hillary Crowder, and it says right here, but when it came to the children, his offer was, I get all of June, some of July, 2 weeks in August, a week in the fall up north. Now again, we have a missing message, and then it says, and while that's better than I would get in court, it then ends with, I want more freedom than that, again, with possibly messages missing in between.
Remember that. The financial offer was serious, and the business evaluator and both of my attorneys agreed the financial offer was good. Offer was rejected. Why?
Now, to answer Gerald's question on why she rejected an offer that she acknowledges is financially good, in fact, better than what she would get in court, it appears she wants more freedom when it comes to their kids. She might want more freedom when it comes to a potential non-disparagement agreement or some other additional condition that we have yet to know about that has been yet to be revealed. Maybe if you gave us the other side of this conversation, we would be able to understand the broader context of it. But even with what you provided, she said, I want more freedom, not I want more money. And she specifically mentions terms allotted to her when it comes to custody of the children, which was something that was in dispute.
Let's go back to the plan. To assimilate damaging PR assets and wage a negative publicity campaign against Stephen. And then, after doing that, they could make it all go away for Stephen. Per Hillary's father to Hillary and other family members in a group text. The longer the divorce proceedings go on, the worse the outcome for SC, Stephen Crowder. Developing damaging PR assets should be pursued. That deliverable is up to us, not the legal team. I wonder why. And at the right time, Mark Scroggins, the first of 3 attorneys, will show SC the path to make it all go away. Do you understand what they're saying there, guys? We're going to wage a campaign against Stephen. Not to tell the truth about Stephen, but to misrepresent things that are going on so that we can put pressure on him. Doesn't matter if these things are true or not. People are going to run with it because, hey, Stephen Crowder tells some jokes sometimes that offend people. So they're going to run with it and they're going to put pieces out in the newspaper. And then when the pressure is so much, when we have wrecked his life enough, at the right time, and I quote, bring it back up, at the right time, Mark, referring to Hillary's first divorce attorney, will show SC the path to make it all go away.
So like I said earlier on in this video, Gerald actually did a good job in the open. That original message from Hillary Crowder's father looked pretty bad. We didn't have overall context for it, but on its own, to be fair, that looked like an easy win for Gerald and the Louder with Crowder team. However, this just went too far. This was just a own goal, a fumble, a mistake, because he left up the full text of the document. And when you read it, you realize that they're taking Hillary Crowder's father completely out of context with the highlighted portions. Again, I just challenge any of you, pause the video and read the full text of what's on screen. So this is a message from Hillary's father that is from, according to this time code, again, that they put up on screen, February 9th, 2022. So this is months before that other email that, again, ripped from its context, looks damning. And this is where I think Gerald really messed up, because when you read its full text, you realize it's not really what it was presented as. It says, yesterday, Hillary and I met with the attorney Mark and his team for 1 hour. In response to very specific questions, here is my takeaway from that meeting. Please take the time to read and thoughtfully consider as we advise Hillary today during mediation. Point 1. Hillary's choice of domicile and custody will be an uphill battle, but is certainly a possible outcome. Point 2, which was what was highlighted by Gerald. The longer the divorce proceedings go on, the worse the outcome for Steven Crowder. So already we have a huge problem right here, because Gerald ripped this line out of context to make it seem like Hillary Crowder's father was the one planning to prolong the divorce, and by proxy, Hillary was also participating in this particular plan. But as we can see, these are summarized parts from an attorney that Gerald ripped out of context and threw on the screen for you that are just in a document that summarizes what the attorney told Hillary and her father. Let me go on to show you how much more benign this document actually is. Point 3. Any agreement for temporary custody will become a marker and set the standard for permanent custody. Now, also, I want to point out right here where it says from the lawyer that whatever custody agreement they get is going to be the framework going forward, for you to keep in your mind that Crowder was pushing for full custody and Hillary was pushing for a split custody, a joint custody. So yeah, this is just advice from the lawyer. Number 4, Mark is okay if no agreement is reached today and we walk away. Number 5, the trial may go on for a year or more if Steven digs in. Number 6, psychological evaluation of SC could be a 6-month process. During that time, other productive legal work will go forward simultaneously. Number 7, and again, this was what was highlighted by Gerald. Developing damaging OKPR assets should be pursued. That deliverable, it is up to us, not the legal team. At the right time, Mark will show Steven Crowder the path to make it all go away. And number 7, the judge who slapped Steven down and issued a visitation order will be the judge that goes to trial. So what we have right here is not this concocted scheme put forward by Hillary Crowder and her father. What we have is the father summarizing what the lawyer told him based on that particular meeting in 8 points, although there's 2 7s for some reason, and that context makes this much less benign. And the reason why the attorneys are not going to go out and get PR people or media people in order to do a public pressure campaign on Steven Crowder is because they're attorneys. They're focusing on the legal. If they want to pitch their story to the media and all that, the attorney is telling him that's on him and the family and their decision. But there's more text on this particular document that I like to read and highlight for you because it's absolutely crucial. Now, there's the father trying to buy Hillary a house near her friend, but who cares about that? This part is absolutely amazing right here. Finally, Hillary, I really like your strategy of selling the vision to Steven Crowder of you raising the babies, and he is the cool dad who the children have fun with. You might suggest to Mark that this vision is going to be the opening theme in the hope of starting off with something both parties can agree on. Seems like this would be the best case scenario for the children, and then 3 additional hearts. So yeah, even in this particular document that Gerald, by the way, pulled from his legal complaint against Hillary Crowder, you can see their opening strategy was not to smear Steven Crowder, was not to destroy Steven Crowder. In fact, that was the lawyer giving them the breakdown of how this proceeding normally works if things get nasty. Their opening strategy was to give Steven Crowder an option so that he could save face of cool co-parenting couple, parents that just couldn't get along, but Steven's the fun dad and they work it out and make it happen together. Again, again, the very same message on the very same screen on Gerald's Twitter account. As proof positive of this conspiracy, we have it right here that they were offering Steven in February, months before that September message that they put first in their video for some reason, a way to get out of this without any bad reputation for either of them in the cleanest way possible.
The longer the divorce proceedings go on, the worse the outcome for SC, Steven Crowder.
Now remember, Gerald highlighted this portion right here where he says the longer the divorce goes on, the worse it is for Steven Crowder. But right at the bottom, they're offering an off-ramp in order to smooth over the process. And they talk about the process being extended by Steven digging in, not by them actually going through with their plan, which again is pitching the public a co-parenting narrative.
They both want money, maybe fame. They don't care if it's at the expense or well-being of the children or the family, or if they do, they're hiding that fact very well.
So right here, Gerald alleges that they want money and or fame, and they don't care about the well-being of the children, and if they do, they're hiding it very well. Well, Gerald, you're lying, and you're not hiding it very well, because right at the bottom, Hillary's father says he really likes her idea of pitching this co-parenting thing because it's best for the children. So it's right there on the page, not hidden at all whatsoever, and you showed us earlier messages that said that Hillary was offered $5 million, and she rejected that over the custody issue because she wanted more time with her children and more freedom with her children. So Gerald, you're lying directly to our face, and your own documents betray you.
And look, based on what we've discussed, they don't believe that Mug Club should even exist because it should all belong to them. Having an undercover unit? No, that money belongs to Hillary. Going out and getting these documents released so you guys could know what's going on about the Nashville manifesto, about the Chippewa Falls stuff that we've revealed and the other stories that we are working on right now? No, it belongs to them.
So everything Gerald just said right there is completely false and completely betrayed by the documents that he showed. Again, they offered her $5 million. That's what it said in the message. She acknowledged that that money was more than she would get in the court proceedings, but she wanted more freedom after referencing the custody issue with her children and where she could take them and whatnot. So it appears that Hillary Crowder turned down more money, according to the documents you showed us, Gerald, in order to have more custody with her kids. But to pull the guilt card and say, hey, you know what? You want the trans manifesto leaked? Well, we're not going to have money for that because Hillary wants all that money. She's just going to take all that money. How can we afford to have somebody send us the manifesto, probably through email, so that we can publish it, you know, the millions of dollars of operation, if Hillary, greedy Hillary, takes all the money? And again, remember, they're not addressing the Jared issues. They're not telling you what happened with his Twitter account or anything like that, but they're going with the Hillary is greedy after showing you a message where she says she's turning down more money because of the custody issue, and then showed us something and said they don't care about the children when they specifically have a message where they're like, let's offer Crowder a good deal to save his image because it would be best for the children.
And so this company is suing Hillary for extortion against us. We filed a lawsuit against Hillary, her family, and media reps for tortious interference and their extortion conspiracy scheme, which I will lay out in detail. I take no pleasure in that. I wish everybody would go and just do the right thing, and we could all get on with our lives, and you could tune into this show and see updates about news, comedy, everything that you love about this show, additional content from great people that you love to hear from. But unfortunately, I can't do that today.
Now, at this point, 15 minutes in, Gerald says that he's suing Hillary and her family for extortion. Now, they're actually suing for torturous interference, which means that they're interfering with the business. And this is based on, according to the complaint, them releasing that Ring video of Steven Crowder, you know, the one where he's yelling at his 8-month pregnant wife. Now, they're saying that that costs them Rumble memberships, which could result in the termination of their Rumble contract. But I find this to be quite interesting because they're, again, accused of lawfare. And by the way, the whole time he was quoting excerpts from his lawsuit earlier when he said court documents. Now he's pretending like he's shifting to the lawsuit, but this is all the same document, just to be clear about that. Their perspective, their allegations, that's what they're putting forward. And he doesn't say that he's suing them for $1 million at the same time that Hillary Crowder is going through a very expensive divorce with Steven Crowder.
Let's talk about some things that you know and maybe some things that you don't know. So, one of the things you know, the Ring footage, right? Everybody remembers that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my machine just froze.
Going out at all or no?
We're still going out.
All right.
It's just stuck
Okay.
on your camera.
Stuck on
right
me.
now?
That's, you know what? That's fine.
Yeah.
That's where we need to be right now.
Yeah.
Just going to talk you guys through this. Here's what you know. Ring footage that was sent out that tried to portray Stephen in a very negative light, having an argument with his wife. Stephen admitted he's not a perfect guy. There are definitely faults. Arguments happen. People always say stuff that they wish they could either take back or was taken out of context in arguments.
So I do like that as soon as they bring up the ring footage, the guy says his machine stopped working. I'm not going to go all conspiratorial, but this is probably where you would want your machine to stop working. And he says the ring footage portrays Stephen, or they tried to portray Stephen in a negative light. To be clear, Stephen Crowder is indefensible in that ring footage. There is no defense for it. This idea that, oh, he said he wasn't perfect, therefore it's totally cool for him to chase at and threaten his pregnant wife, ridiculous and absurd. Now, again, if you want to go with the defense that we're looking at 3.5 minutes in a 10-year marriage, I think that's perfectly fine. I think that's your best bet. But don't tell me that that is somehow them framing Stephen that way when that's him on the video and those are his actual words and his actual actions.
People always say stuff that they wish they could either take back or was taken out of context in arguments. But here's what you don't know. Hillary deleted all of the other footage from that house on the Ring cameras and the Lake residence when a court expressly barred her from doing so. How many hours? Over 2,000 hours. Also, 8,000 hours never even handed over, along with 18 seconds from the doctored video itself.
So let's make something 100% clear. If Hillary Crowder deleted 2,000 hours worth of video footage while she was under court order not to do so, then she should be admonished by the court. And honestly, if she did, then I would love for Gerald or anybody at Louder with Crowder to produce documentation of the judge admonishing her for doing so. However, this is not that documentation. This is, again, from the complaint that Gerald filed against Hillary Crowder. So right now what we have is that he is alleging that she deleted this footage. He is alleging that she did not turn over this footage, but it has not been proven. This is just in the initial complaint. Now, he also alleges that the Ring video doorbell system is actually doctored footage, that 3 minutes and 30 seconds or whatever has missing things in it. Now, he says a specific amount of time, like 15 or 16 seconds, has been removed. Let me just say, unless he's talking about footage at the beginning or footage at the end that was somehow cut off, that is just not the case. Now, there are, in fact, cuts in the Ring video footage, and when I first saw it, one of the reasons why I was reserved in my reaction was because of those cuts. But in reality, in actuality, the way these Ring video doorbell systems work, and by the way, everybody has these across the country, so you can verify what I'm saying on your own, and there's actually videos explaining this. I will link one that explains it in greater detail in the description. Is that when sound and or motion crosses the path of the camera, it turns on for a set period of time. I believe it's 40 seconds or 60 seconds. I don't remember exactly how long it is, but after that, if people are not moving, then the footage will stop. But when motion resumes or sound resumes, the video will kick up again. And if you watch the supposed cuts in these particular situations, they're after that initial recording period, and then after a period of non-motion, and then they're triggered by motion. In fact, in one of the videos, it's actually reactivated by the dog moving, so no, it's not doctored at all whatsoever. And to be clear, Gerald or Louder with Crowder have not provided any evidence to prove that it was doctored. And by the way, they would have this in discovery from the lawsuit, and we're talking about the divorce, not this lawsuit, which is the company suing Hillary Crowder and her family and her attorney and her friend.
Hillary deleted all of the other footage from that house on the Ring cameras and the Lake residence.
Now, like I said, if Hillary Crowder did delete this 2,000 hours of footage in the Michigan residence and in the Texas residence, and that was something that court ordered she was supposed to preserve, then produce evidence of that court order, an order to preserve, that would be easy to do, and produce evidence from the divorce court that she was admonished for deleting that footage, for violating the rules of discovery, because I don't believe anything you say, Gerald, based on the fact that you consistently lie and aren't even clever enough to cover up or redact portions of the page that disprove what you're saying. But more importantly, what is the relevance of all this additional footage to the Louder with Crowder lawsuit against Hillary Crowder based on her releasing the video? Now, again, if there's something doctored, if there's 15 seconds where they say before the video starts, let's do this funny sketch where I pretend to be a domestic abuser that clears Steven Crowder's name, then you might have something. But if there's other footage from a Michigan residence and you're mad that the family of Hillary Crowder leaked this video of Steven yelling at his 8 months pregnant wife because she didn't want to give medicine to their dog, all those hours of footage, even though it sounds real epic, don't provide any evidence at all whatsoever. It looks like in this particular document, you inserted this in there so that you can publish it later, or if it became public, people could look at it to say that Hillary is deleting evidence, even though that's completely irrelevant to the issue at hand. And don't think I'm not smart enough to realize that. Don't think I'm not smart enough to detect that just because the majority of your audience ate it up and they're talking about this Ring video footage that was deleted. How is that related in any way, shape, or form at all whatsoever to that video that you're alleging is doctored? You've never provided any evidence that it actually is doctored that actually lines up perfectly with the default settings of the Ring video doorbell system.
That's right. All the other Ring footage from multiple cameras in multiple residences has either been actively destroyed or never even handed over in the first place.
Again, this is why I'm incredibly suspicious of Gerald, because he says 2,000 hours of Ring footage have been actively destroyed from both residences and 8,000 hours were never turned over. Now, I want to know if this footage automatically deletes or anything like that, and why he somehow knows that 2,000 hours were destroyed versus 8,000 hours that Hillary is supposedly holding in her vault and not turning over. And again, this has no relevance at all to the footage that they're suing over, which was the argument with Steven Crowder and Hillary that went viral.
There are family claims about hardships. I will make all of this stuff available on our website. I'll make sure you guys have full access to all of this. It's not us. This is court documents. This is stuff that has been filed. They claim hardships. Here's what you don't know. Hillary's getting $25,000 per month from Steven. Per month. $300,000 a year, no taxes held out of it. In Texas, all divorce-related attorneys' fees are paid by the estate. Steven's the only one actively contributing to the estate right now, so you can do the math there. This is the first time that we know a dime has been spent from Hillary on a lawsuit that isn't coming from the estate, also known as Steven. I don't like that, but I don't have any other options.
Now look, we're going to Jen Psaki style circle back to that $25,000 a month number because Gerald is being incredibly dishonest in the way that he characterizes that money, but I want to play you this clip because this is the point where I realize that Gerald is lying and I can't trust a word that he says all throughout this video. All this is an elaborate smear campaign, and it has to do with one of the lawyers that Hillary Crowder hired.
Here's something else you don't know. Hillary hired entertainment superstar lawyer Brian Friedman as part of her PR attack against Steven. I don't know if you guys remember who Brian Friedman is, but he represented Trevor Bauer's false accuser, releasing images that were doctored. What he knew at the time, what he didn't know, still up for a little bit of debate, but it looks like there was some reason to believe maybe this claim wasn't 100% on the up and up.
So what you just witnessed right there was guilt by association of the client after the fact, because I believe that Hillary Crowder actually retained Brian Friedman well before it was revealed that his client in the Trevor Bauer case was lying. And Gerald really dances around accusing Brian Friedman of knowing that that case was fake because likely he doesn't want to get sued by this top high-powered attorney. And by the way, another way to frame Brian Friedman, if you wanted to be more generous to Hillary Crowder, would be to say that she hired the same attorney that represented Megyn Kelly, that she hired the same attorney that represented Tucker Carlson, because Brian Friedman is in fact a top attorney in his particular field, and anybody would be an idiot not to hire him if he was available to them for their particular case. So this is just a smear. Let's be clear about that. They're trying to link Hillary Crowder to the woman who accused Trevor Bauer through their attorney, who happened to represent both, while ignoring all the other people that they represented. On top of that, one of Steven Crowder's attorneys represented Bill Cosby. Now, I would never say because Steven Crowder hired Marty Sanger that therefore he's guilty of sexual misconduct because Marty Sanger represented Bill Cosby, who was guilty of sexual misconduct. But according to Gerald's logic, that would be perfectly fair game because he's saying since Trevor Bauer's accuser was lying, therefore, through the transitive property, Steven Crowder's wife is lying in this particular case. Now, I've used this as an example, but let me just put it out there for you guys to understand. If I was ever arrested and I had unlimited funds for murder in the state of Florida, I'm going to get Jose Baez to represent me. And the reason why is because Casey Anthony, I believe, was guilty, and Aaron Hernandez, the former New England Patriots tight end, I also believe was guilty, and he beat the murder charges in both of those cases. There's nothing wrong with getting the best representation you can possibly get, and this is what I would expect from Steven Crowder. And by the way, this is exactly what he does.
Hillary's getting $25,000 per month from Steven. Per month. $300,000 a year, no taxes held out of it. In Texas, all divorce-related attorneys' fees are paid by the estate. Steven's the only one actively contributing to the estate right now, so you can do the math there. This is the first time that we know a dime has been spent from Hillary on a lawsuit that isn't coming from the estate, also known as Steven. I don't like that, but I don't have any other options.
Now back to this $25,000, because the answer is right there in the document that Gerald showed you. Let me just read the section that he highlighted so you can see it for yourself. And this is section 19, again, from the Louder with Crowder lawsuit against Hillary Crowder. Now it is said, the judge in the divorce proceeding ordered that Louder with Crowder has to pay me $25,000 per month pursuant to a temporary order during the duration of the divorce. Steven tried to reduce that amount, but was unsuccessful. I can barely pay my divorce attorneys, let alone the attorneys in this litigation with that amount. Now on line 20, it also says this lawsuit is being referenced in the divorce in ways that make me believe the lawsuit is being brought as leverage against me. And that's signed by Hillary Crowder before a court of law, something that she is attaching her name to, not just the initial allegations in a complaint. Now, Gerald goes on to say that under Texas law, the entirety of lawyers' fees are paid for by the estate. And he says that Hillary has not accrued $1 of legal costs or something to that effect in relation to the divorce case. However, that is clearly and obviously not the case. And in fact, Lauren Southern actually had documentation to prove that Steven Crowder was running up the legal bills above that $25,000, and his estate, or the estate that's joint between them because they were married, was ordered to pay additional money on top of that to cover the lawyer's fees for the divorce.
Eventually, the court in the divorce case realized Hillary could not afford her divorce attorney and an attorney for this second case as well, and she was going into debt, which is why they ordered Steven start paying her divorce attorney. So this is where the claim comes from, that Steven is paying for attorney fees plus an additional $25,000.
Now, I will say I do appreciate Lauren Southern for putting this video out, because this is actually an order on attorney's fees, and what this says is that Steven Crowder has to pay the currently owed $59,150.06 out of the estate, which again, as of right now, the time that they're married, belongs to both of them. On top of that, they're supposed to hold $175,000 in a trust for the benefit of Hillary Crowder's attorney's fees, and it is further ordered that Steven shall pay that from the community estate, that $175,000. And again, this is a court order. This is the judge assessing both sides of the argument and issuing a ruling. Now, it is definitely 100% a lie that Hillary Crowder is not using this $25,000 to pay for her attorney's fees. I don't know if I can call the entirety of Gerald's statement a lie, because typically after a divorce, the estate will pay the fees for the lawyers, but during the divorce, the default position is that people cover their own fees. In order to get your fees covered during the course of the divorce proceedings, you actually have to petition the court for that, and you will be approved if you're a stay-at-home mom, like Hillary Crowder was, so let me not be ambiguous about that, but you're not approved for an unlimited amount. That's why she had to do a special extra hearing and get awarded additional funds later on, because you have a set rate. In this case, it was the $25,000 a month. And this is to make sure that they can have an equal chance of fighting it out in the divorce, and that Steven Crowder, in this particular case, can't just run up the costs in order to force her into an unfavorable settlement.
Like that. Let's just read through some of the court documents here between Steven and Hillary that kind of show what's going on here in the financial realm. This case is extremely litigious. Steven Crowder, through his attorney of record, has multiple depositions ordered in this matter, some of which are to be conducted in California and Florida. Travel expenses to include airfare, hotel, and meals will be incurred. Counsel for Hillary Crowder needs multiple depositions conducted. There have been numerous discovery disputes and hearings heard in this matter, with numerous discovery disputes and enforcement issues still pending. The parties were ordered to mediate again for 2 days. The first day of mediation was conducted on October 6, 2023, and the second day of mediation. Okay, moving on. Steven Crowder has access and control of the majority, if not the entirety, of the assets in the parties and community property estate. Hillary Crowder does not have access to nor control of sufficient community assets to adequately prosecute her case, the disadvantage of which is particularly troubling in light of the fact that Steven Crowder has a substantial amount of community money subject to his control, a company through which he can pay his living expenses and his attorney fees and substantial income. Petitioner Hillary Crowder can show this court that respondent filed a civil action against her, her family, her entertainment attorney, and friend in cause number, etc., seeking monetary damages exceeding $1 million. Hillary Crowder does not have the financial resources to defend this civil action.
So that $25K is not just money that she puts in her pocket to go spend, as Jared implies. It's not child support either. That's also assessed after the divorce is finalized. This is to cover her fees for her lawyers and to make sure that she doesn't live out in the streets during the course of this divorce proceeding. The fact that Gerald would blatantly misrepresent this is crazy in every possible way, especially when he shows on screen them discussing this, and you could see this is exactly what it's for. On top of that, this goes to the heart of Jared's original issue, which was that they try to bury their opponents in legal fees, because at the same time that they know she has a set amount of $25,000, the company, being represented by Gerald, the CEO of the company, filed a lawsuit against Hillary Crowder and against members of her family and against her attorney and against her friend in order to drive up the costs on her, and that is what she is describing throughout these various court documents. And by the way, unlike this, where they have a complaint that shows them just putting this assertion forward, they actually have rulings that they were in fact doing this. However, to be clear, Hillary Crowder is not covered when the company sues her, so those costs are borne on her. So Gerald right here revealed to all of us, maybe inadvertently so, that Hillary had a capped amount of $25,000 to cover her expenses / legal bills. Steven Crowder was well aware of that. Louder with Crowder, the company, was well aware of that because their estate is in Louder with Crowder. It's the same thing for the purposes of this case. And then on top of that, he's suing her in what looks like to me an obvious tactic known as lawfare, where you try to bury your opponents in legal costs. So he kind of proved the truth of one of Jared's allegations by this presentation right here, but he tried to fart in the room so you'd be distracted by the smell by mentioning the woman who accused Trevor Bauer. Very deceptive tactic right here that ultimately ends up revealing that you guys are in fact being dishonest about this particular case. And again, this doesn't even have to get into the particulars of the divorce itself. It's just your strategy in terms of legal lawfare against Hillary, her family, her friend, her attorney, and possibly, likely, what you're doing to Jared.
One of the claims was that Steven had revealed his genitalia to people in the office. We talked about that. We addressed all of that. Here's what
they didn't see our Terminator 2
sketch, or when you have to wear, like really thin garments so that you can be painted gold.
Yeah.
Right? For some of the sketches that we've done. Here's what you don't know. Jared exposed his penis in professional settings to Steven. When they were at Wham Radio, he would expose himself in a way that only Steven could see, and then for an hour, Steven would have to sit there talking to people at the radio station about the business dealings of the show and not break. And to them, it was funny then and funny now. We're not calling him out for it. We're just saying it seems a bit odd that he was somebody who participated, maybe even started doing it, and then apparently cried foul about it.
So this I found very interesting as well, because right here, Gerald inadvertently admits that Steven Crowder did show his penis to employees in professional settings. He pins it on Jared for starting it, but remember, if Jared is starting it and Steven found it funny and they both found it funny, but now it's a problem.
We're not calling him out for it. We're just saying it seems a bit odd that he was somebody who participated, maybe even started doing it, and then apparently cried foul about it.
Then it looks like Steven did engage in it. So that's inappropriate behavior at the workplace. Whether or not the employee started it or not, it's a problem.
Let's start with Joe Lewis, Steven's dog. Hillary tried to have Joe Lewis removed from him. Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
Falsely claimed that Joe was dangerous, citing the previous owner.
So as if the emotional manipulation wasn't at its lowest common denominator level already, they then pivot to Hillary Crowder was trying to hurt Steven Crowder's dog, Joe Lewis, this Argentinian doggo, which, by the way, when I look up the breed, I find out that its bite is stronger than a pit bull, and it seems like, again, because we're only getting the perspective from the legal complaint filed by their side, we're not actually seeing the neutral court documents, the rulings, or anything like that, that Hillary just wanted him to have, which by the way is common in a divorce, some kind of plan to keep the dog away from the children, because we've seen in many circumstances people who think their dog is perfectly fine, they end up mauling and or potentially killing the kid. The idea that this was a removal from Steven's possession, I would have to see evidence of that, and evidence means neutral evidence or something maybe from her complaint, rather than what you're filing in your lawsuit, where you're including as many incendiary allegations as humanly possible. On top of that, this is a big dog, and I want to know if there's any basis from this. Maybe there's a reason why you're not showing us Hillary Crowder's side of this, even though you appear to have access to those documents since you're referencing those documents. Like a dog maybe, I don't know, attacking somebody, attacking other dogs, maybe going after kids, or some kind of incident that has to do with this dog. But maybe you could reveal some information, or at least give us the chance to see the other side of this equation before just alleging this and then saying, oh, dog, everybody loved dog. Dog good, we're in the United States of America. Who doesn't love dog? Hillary Crowder no love dog? Oh man, Hillary Crowder so mean, so rude. Also, I want to point out, we're talking about this dog, which, you know, got no issues with dogs. I'm not a dog hater or anything like that. But we're not answering whether or not you took Jared's Twitter account, and we're not answering whether or not you blackballed Jared. We're talking about the dog and how Hillary Crowder wanted some plan to keep her kids safe from this dog, which, by the way, it's a really big dog and it's a stronger bite than a pit bull. I can understand it, whether or not this claim about the owner is true or not. And by the way, a quick lookup of this dog presents this WebMD article where they do warn you about this particular breed of dog. Again, bigger than a pit bull, looks like this, around toddlers, and I believe their children are still infants at this point in time, the twins. I don't remember exactly when they got divorced, but we're talking maybe 2 years old maximum, and yeah, it's saying for toddlers, kids older than that, this dog is probably not gentle enough for those particular kids. So asking for a plan for this dog when it comes to your twin babies seems like it makes sense. Also, we don't really have a date from this allegation from Hillary Crowder. This could have been submitted early in the divorce. And I know a lot of people are saying, oh, well, why didn't she complain about the dog for years before when Steven had it? But remember, she actually left Steven Crowder just before she gave birth. So the reason she wouldn't have complained about it before is because her kids were not in the environment with the dog that, according to WebMD, may not be ideal because it's too rough for toddlers. And again, if there's something additional in the complaint, I can't see it because contrary to what Gerald says, this is not public information. A lot of this is private, but it makes perfect sense for you to be concerned about this. Only an idiot would say, I love my dog way harder than the safety of my infant children. But, you know, it is America, so maybe, just maybe, that's the actual position that they're taking.
The previous owner, let me just say this. That happened while I was in Steven's office. He got a note saying from Hillary that Joe Lewis was dangerous and needed to be removed from the presence of the children. He almost started crying
Yeah, I don't give a damn if Steven's almost started crying over this situation. You figure out a plan, you swear in the court that you're going to put the dog somewhere where it can't get to the children. You have to take some safety precaution. This is perfectly common in divorces. It should be common sense that you would do even if you were to stay together, because you don't want an incident where the dog kills your child. So he can cry like a baby. You could try to emotionally manipulate me by saying, dog, oh, dog, oh my God, dog. And Steven Crowder was crying over his dog. But in reality, this seems like the most reasonable request. But again, they're trying to appeal to the lowest common denominator. Now look, overall, I have to be perfectly honest with you. I'm not happy to be discussing the in and outs of another person's divorce. I'm not happy to be discussing a conservative commentator, especially one of the largest on the entire platform, repeatedly lying over and over again. But the thing is, there were legitimate questions about what went down with Gerald Monroe. Gerald said that he was going to address those actual legitimate issues, but guess what? He didn't. He decided to say, look over there, look at Hillary Crowder. Isn't she evil? Isn't she greedy? Also, she hates dogs. Well, guess what? That's not fooling me. And that shouldn't fool you guys out there in the audience. Almost every single document that they put forward throughout the whole course of their video came directly from their legal complaint that they filed as a company against Hillary Crowder while she was going into a divorce in what I believe to be a textbook case of lawfare, legal intimidation, an attempt to run up the costs on Hillary Crowder in order to hurt her and force her into a divorce settlement, which is crazy because the whole time they're accusing her of the same exact tactic. Even if Hillary Crowder was guilty of that tactic, guess what? They're both engaged in it. Even best case scenario for Steven Crowder. But what it looks like from actually examining the documents, from actually looking at the very same things that they show us to prove that she doesn't care about the kids and she only cares about money, is the fact that she wants more time with the kids. She wanted Steven Crowder and her to have a good public image of co-parenting, and guess what? She rejected money. But honestly, we don't have to speculate about this anymore, or we shouldn't have to speculate about this for much longer, because Steven Crowder recently posed for a picture with his family attorney, doing fist bumps, talking about delivering again. Now, some people have told me that Crowder announced a settlement in his divorce. I haven't really found that video. I don't know how I'm missing it. I'm sorry. But whatever. He might be on the verge of settling or have settled already. So I am assuming as a part of that agreement that Steven Crowder is smiling about on this Facebook post on the lawyer's Facebook page, that he would have enough information to clear his name. He would be able to publish all of these documents that show us that he didn't do nothing wrong and that the real villain in this situation is Hillary and their family, who are just extraordinarily greedy. And since Gerald wanted to lie to everybody out there in the audience and say that that $25K isn't that temporary award in order to cover her legal fees during the time of the divorce proceedings, and he wanted to pretend like that was just money that was given to Hillary Crowder to spend, then I would expect the money amount of the settlement to be many times higher, or at least slightly higher than that $25K. Because if you think about it, if she's getting $25K a month just for spending money and she's not going into legal debt, why would she settle for anything less? So I wait on Steven Crowder to release the terms of that divorce. I wait on him to prove positive what he was saying, that his wife just greedy. She just wanted to kill his dog and deny you access to the trans shooters manifesto with her infinite greed, and show us how much money she actually got. Reveal to the public that everything that is being assumed and asserted by people on the internet.com is absolutely false. Show us the evidence, Steven, because I know for damn sure you did not get your good, genuine name dragged through the mud and then agree to not talk about the divorce after the fact. I know for damn sure that you didn't just come out here and tell me that Hillary and her family were so egregious in their smear campaign against you that your company had to sue her, her family, her lawyer, and her friend, and now you're just going to shut up about it. I know for a fact that you're going to tell us that she's getting $55K a month or something like that at this point in time because she's so greedy and you were just put over a barrel and there was nothing you can do in that situation. Come on, Steven. Put forward the information. Have Gerald, your trained monkey, do it for you if you need to, because we know you got screwed over in this divorce, and that's how it went down. We know that this was not about custody, according to you guys, even though the documents that you show that it is. It's about custody and time with the kids, and it's about money. So I want to see how much more than that $5 million Hillary Crowder managed to extract from you that she didn't earn. Also, I want to see your employment agreement with Jared. I want to see the additional agreement that you had him sign, because remember, Steven is against these corporate structured contracts, and he likes a more family oriented business, and he would never screw anybody over as bad as the Daily Wire, let alone worse than the Daily Wire. So I'm awaiting the release of that documentation. I have a feeling we're not going to see any of that. I have a feeling that Steven Crowder did agree to shut up about his divorce, and until somebody leaks out the actual information from this, we're not going to find out exactly who he is behind the scenes, because he doesn't want you to find out who he is behind the scenes. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you liked this video, then show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the Jared Monroe issue, and unfortunately spiraling into the divorce situation. Till next time.